You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into
the Velvet Room.
This is the first in a series of videos where I'll explain a single idea from the Persona games. These games are based in a rich collection of ideas, incorporating real-world psychology and philosophy into a complex world. To fully understand what happens in these games, you need a foundational understanding of these ideas. That's what this series is hoping to build. I will explain each idea briefly, the philosophy behind it, and how it relates to the story and universe of Persona. We're starting off the series with the thing that makes the Persona universe different from ours, what I call cognitive realms. Cognitive realms are places where reality reshapes itself in response to the human mind. The Persona games are really games about psychology. These realms allow these inner world ideas that the game is interested in to appear in the outside world, so we can truly look at them and struggle with them. Each realm in these games is based on different aspects of our minds, so they follow different rules. We'll look at what these realms have in common, then look at how the realms in each game are unique. So what do they have in common? There are two main effects that are common across cognitive realms. First, things people believe become true. Material inside of cognitive realms rearranges itself to conform to human beliefs. This is how Persona 5's guns work. The Phantom Thieves carry only model guns, not real guns. But as long as they look real, their targets will believe they are real, and that makes them become real. Second, parts of people's minds can take physical form. More specifically, any strong complex can take form. Complexes are an idea from Carl Jung, and they are too big a topic to cover here. Complexes will have their own video. In short, complexes are like alternate personalities we have.
Are you aware of the many and varied selves you harbor within you?
We each have a conscious personality, which Jung called the ego. Besides this, we each have many other personalities inside us. The Persona games classify these into broadly two types. Personas are conscious complexes. This means they are parts of ourselves that the ego knows about and can choose to use. They are the different ways we present ourselves in different situations in life. When you choose whether to ask for something politely, or act tough and demand it, you are choosing which mask will get what you want from the world. When you respond to a difficult situation by putting on a strong face, you're wearing a mask as armor to protect yourself from the world. Personas interact with the outside world on our behalf, so when our mind acts directly on the world, it does so by sending out a persona to do its bidding. Shadows are unconscious complexes. They're made of parts of ourselves outside of the ego's understanding and control. The name is something of a misnomer. For Jung, the shadow is a very specific complex. Persona instead uses it to mean any unconscious complex. So some persona shadows are Jungian shadows, but not all. Shadows follow unconscious desires and values, things that the ego doesn't even understand that it wants. So they act separately from the ego, and their actions may seem alien or repugnant to it. Now that we have a basic understanding of cognitive realms, we'll look at some specific examples. Every game in the series has at least one cognitive realm. They differ from each other in each having their own unique rules, and in how easily our minds can alter the world. Let's look briefly at each. In Persona 1, the city of Mikage-Cho becomes a cognitive realm. Although there is much more going on, as a cognitive realm, it is rather straightforward. Later games all build on top of the framework Persona 1 gives us. The cognitive effect seems to be weak here. Ordinary people are not able to summon personas. Only those who have been gifted power by some outside entity have the strength to create a physical change. There are some suggestions that subtler cognitive effects are going on, but it wasn't until the sequel that these ideas got fully explored. In Persona 2, the city of Sumaru becomes a cognitive realm, much like Mikage-Cho. We see that even though ordinary people can't directly change reality, as they spread ideas, those ideas can change reality. This comes from the Japanese idea of kotodama. According to this idea, every word you speak has a sort of spirit to it. That spirit goes out into the world with your words, changes the world, and eventually comes back and affects you. If you speak carelessly, every word you utter sends an evil spirit into the world that will make it worse. But if you speak wisely, you will call forth good spirits that will make the world better. We see this in how rumors work in Sumaru. When one person believes something, the influence of their cognition is so weak that we can't see it at all. But when a belief becomes widespread among the people, then reality reshapes itself to conform. So as ideas spread, the world radically changes. As one example, let's look at what happens in the Shiraishi ramen shop. The owner of the shop loved to tease customers by making up crazy stories about her past. She would tell people she used to be married to an oil tycoon, or that she used to be a spy. While she was just having fun, her words still carried kotodama. The story about her being a spy grew to include the idea that she has a secret menu of weapons she sells. Eventually, that story spreads enough to become true. The role that she took on as a joke is now forced upon her. The kotodama she has sent into the world has come back to her and changed her life. As the situation in Sumaru unfolds, the rumors become more and more severe. The bad kotodama creates situations that create more bad kotodama, and the rumors escalate until they reach an apocalyptic fervor. Sumaru reminds us that you need to think carefully about what you say and what you focus on, because that decides the world that you will live in. Persona 3 shows us the Dark Hour. It is different in that it occupies a time more than a place. It occupies the absolute end of the day, and the darkest part of the night. Every night at midnight, the world freezes, and there's an hour of time that functions as a cognitive realm. In this time, the world is frozen, but creatures with minds can move freely. However, the Dark Hour is intimately connected with death. Why that is beyond the scope of this video. But in the Dark Hour, you can sense that death is near. Ordinary people are struck by terror and instinctively encase themselves in a barrier that appears as a coffin. Because of this, although they in a sense experience the Dark Hour every night, they have no awareness of it. There are two ways to remain awake in the Dark Hour. First, you can gain the courage to face your fear of death. That is not easy to do, and you will have to face many dark aspects of yourself. Learning to face a deep fear like this requires a great deal of self-mastery, so most people who can achieve it also gain the power of persona. Second, you can lose your fear of death. People who have no sense of meaning or purpose to their lives can stop valuing those lives. When this happens, they lose the reflex to protect themselves from the Dark Hour, and can operate freely within it. But because they don't see much purpose to living, they usually quickly fall prey to shadows and become apathy syndrome victims. In the Dark Hour, merely existing is exhausting. Simply being alive is an act of defiance against the fundamental forces that drive it. That takes a toll. People in the Dark Hour quickly become physically exhausted, and can't recover until they get out of it. Personas in a way represent the most vital parts of ourselves, so it's not surprising the Dark Hour suppresses them as well. Personas can be summoned without assistance, but it is extremely difficult. In order to reliably be able to call a persona, evokers were invented. They seem to have some technological function, but more importantly, they have a psychological function. Evokers remind the user of death. The will to live and the courage to face death are essential to fighting the Dark Hour. By creating the sensation of holding a gun to your head and pulling the trigger, the evoker forces out these feelings, creating the surge of passion that allows us to overcome the paralyzing grasp of death. The Dark Hour reminds us that it's by facing our deepest fears that we can set ourselves free. Persona 4's TV world is a kind of separate universe that can be accessed by entering a TV. This world is based on how television has changed how we see the world. The cognitive effect is extremely strong. People who have awakened to a persona can summon it with little difficulty. Those who haven't will quickly conjure a shadow instead. If left alone, they will conjure not only a shadow, but an entire dungeon in very little time. The reason for this extremely strong cognitive effect is probably because we know that everything on TV is the product of someone's mind. The world of television is an endless blank canvas that the creators can draw anything on, so a world based on it is receptive to being shaped. The world itself is vast and almost entirely empty. It contains docile shadows and an ever-present fog. The fog represents the confusion that tools like television have created. We have access to an immense amount of information, more than probably any time in history. But most of that information is not important, and much of it is simply not true. All that information makes it hard to figure out what is important and what is true. In a sense, the television is telling us to stop worrying about what's actually true. Instead, live in this comforting world we've created. Many people accept that offer. But there's a cost to that deal. We can only hide from reality for so long. It always catches up eventually. And more importantly, there is something vitalizing about truth. The pursuit of truth and those fleeting moments when we grasp it fill us with a kind of energy that makes us feel truly alive. That is why people in the TV world feel a similar exhaustion to the dark hour. The aimless confusion of the fog traps them in a draining malaise. Fortunately, Teddy's glasses allow the wearers to see through the fog, and so prevents the exhaustion as well. Though having a clear vision is only the first step to grasping the truth. The TV world shows us the power of our creativity. It can both reveal the truth to us and completely cut us off from it. And it reminds us how important the search for truth is. Persona 5's Metaverse shows us how different people see the world. To understand this, we need to talk about cognition. Cognition is the process by which our mind tries to understand the world. We all share this one objective world, but we don't experience that world directly. It passes through different filters before it reaches our conscious awareness. One of these filters is our cognition, where we unconsciously connect ideas and feelings to what our senses show us. Have you ever moved into a new home? There is something uncanny about the experience. It feels strange, distant, maybe even spooky. It looks like a home in some abstract sense, but there's none of the feeling of home. But as you spend time there, building memories and living life, it becomes your home. When you look around, you don't just see walls and furniture, but every site also holds memories, ideas, and feelings of home. That is cognition. The metaverse takes the form of the cognitions of people in the real world. It creates the world as they see it. This takes the form of palaces. The biggest we see is Mementos, which is the shared cognition of most of Tokyo. We also see many other palaces that are completely separate. Why is it split up like this? Well, the metaverse gives form to our mental worlds, but we don't all live in the same mental world. We all share this one objective reality, but how we think about the world alters our cognition, which creates a different subjective reality. Imagine a member of a doomsday cult. Through their cognition, the world might seem dangerous, hopeless, and irredeemable. But someone outside the cult could see the exact same world as mostly safe, with endless hope and opportunity.
Her fate should still be heading down the path to misery, without changing. I mean, look! What? The sequence of Arcana has completely changed. Death has moved far off into the future. No! This must be some sort of trick.
While they have the same objective world, their subjective worlds could not be more different. This is what splits the metaverse into so many worlds. When mental worlds are too different to reconcile, they form disconnected worlds within the metaverse. Over the course of the game, we see many people whose cognitions are so distorted that they create a palace all their own. They are, in a way, condemned to a very deep loneliness, understanding and understood by no one. The metaverse shows us how our ways of thinking change how we experience the world, and how those cognitions can isolate or bind us. The games have many other realms, each with their own unique identity. Let's look at one more that is core to the series. The Velvet Room. To understand the Velvet Room, we need to understand why it was created. The Velvet Room was created by Philemon, a godlike being that believes in human potential, that humans have all the makings of greatness inside of them. They just need a little guidance to find it. That is the purpose of the Velvet Room, to welcome guests who are ready to begin to learn the mysteries of our minds, and to set them on the path. In stories, when the hero begins to cross from the mundane world into the fantastic, they often meet a guide or mentor at the threshold who prepares them for the journey. This element is so common, it is likely a part of our collective unconscious. The Velvet Room may be built on top of that part of our minds, which can help explain how it acts. The Velvet Room is able to connect to other realms. It can open doors into the real world, any of the realms we've discussed so far, or even into the deepest levels of the unconscious. These doors are almost always at a threshold, a crossroads, or the entrance to a world. The Velvet Room can also be entered through dreams, but dreams themselves are a kind of threshold as well, where our ego lingers at the borders of the conscious and the unconscious. The Velvet Room offers all manner of guidance to its guests, teaching them the secrets of cognitive realms, the human heart, and even divining the future. But most obviously, the Velvet Room allows guests to summon personas. That might seem different, but it's actually a combination of the room's functions as granting guidance and being a gateway. The Velvet Room allows its inhabitants to see into the human mind. Personas are made up of various parts of our mind. The inhabitants are able to see into their guests, to find the necessary components to build each persona, and, if necessary, can call them forth from the unconscious. This is one of the ways that the laws of reality within the Velvet Room are changed to assist its purpose. But even the flow of space and time in the Velvet Room can seem to change to suit its guests. As its residents often say, nothing happens in the Velvet Room without a reason, and that reason is almost always to help its guests. The flow of time changes to suit its guests' needs. Long consultations can be held in the blink of an eye if needed. When a guest enters the Velvet Room, it is always at an appropriate time.
As you can see, my master is currently away. If your errand isn't urgent, I regret to ask that you come back late. No, that won't do. This room is bound tightly to your fate. Nothing here happens without a reason. There must be meaning in our meeting here alone. Welcome to the Velvet Room. I am Margaret.
The laws of physics within the room even bend to help its guests. Marie's poems repeatedly escape her bag, only to appear in plain sight of view while she is out of the room. This is another form of guidance. An understanding of those poems is pivotal to both you and Marie's fates. The room may even have seen Marie as a kind of guest herself. The room even changes its physical form to suit its guests. There's an almost dreamlike quality to this. In Jung's view, dreams always use symbolism to express ideas to the conscious mind that it does not yet understand. The room may be trying to convey messages in the same way, preparing its guests for the trials ahead. We only see this at times when the room is tending to a single primary guest. This may be because their fates are so personal that this kind of presentation is only meaningful to a single individual, so for groups of guests it takes a more generic form. In Persona 3, the room appears as an elevator, endlessly ascending. Makoto's journey demands that he ascend Tartarus, but he's also effectively trapped in the elevator. This emphasizes the message that he is being delivered to an inevitable fate. In Persona 4, the room takes the form of a limousine driving through a blinding fog. Yu's adventures demand that he move ever onward, through a path that is terribly obscured. And in Persona 5, the room becomes a prison. Ren has been punished for a crime he never committed. His freedoms have been stripped from him, and now he must suffer so that the powers that be can deem him rehabilitated. Every one of these is something of a warning to its respective guest, but they also all partake of the worlds those guests must journey through. They help prepare the guest for the world they will face. But for us, they demonstrate the endless aspects of ourselves that the Persona games explore. And that gives us a brief idea of cognitive realms as a whole. Any of these realms could be a full-length video of its own. We'll be revisiting cognitive realms many times in the series. It's no exaggeration to say they are the foundation of Persona. Next time, though, we'll be exploring another fundamental concept. What is it that determines what we do? What is the driving force of the heart? What is the nature of desire?